That's what I assumed. So.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Game of Thrones season 8, episode 1 is in the books, and man, there is a lot to talk about. There is a lot to touch on. So much happened in this episode, from the reunion of the Starks, or partial Starks, or however you want to call it, to a crazy dragon ride through the north, to Jon finding out that he's not actually Jon from Samwell, to Samwell finding out about his family's deaths, to everything going on. And of course, we concluded with Jaime Lannister facing off with Bran, the kid he pushed out the window in season 1. I don't think it was episode 1. In season 1 of the show. John, just overview. How'd you feel about episode 1 of season 8, my friend?
I thought it was a great foundational episode for what we can expect for the rest of the season. Like, just enough action to keep us hooked. But to me, how it came off to me was a lot of table setting for what's to come. And honestly, I don't mind that, given that it's only supposed to be 6 episodes, right? And
yeah, 6 episodes, and I've heard that the last couple episodes could go as long as like 90 plus minutes.
Yeah, and like when you've got that kind of runtime, like I'm fine with letting the world breathe, especially when you're gonna like take full advantage of doing the battles and the conflicts and everything, like really realizing the potential of the world that you've built. So yeah, I think this was a great table setting episode, just fun enough. Some very tender moments, some other moments that when you have the context that you do watching this show so long, it's like, ugh. But yeah, on the whole, really, really good stuff, man. Really good stuff. What'd you think of it? Because I know you actively took notes and shit. So
yeah, I actually I loved this episode, and like you say, it was a lot of table setting, but it was the exact kind of table setting that I was hoping to get from this episode, and really from this season. Like, we know, or we're pretty confident, at least we might know, and there might be a quote up there that I just haven't seen, but we're pretty confident that episode 3 is the Battle of Winterfell. So that right there is when the Night King and the White Walkers arrive at Winterfell, and we get this huge battle between the living and the dead. So we need to kind of go at a breakneck pace, and we have. Like, already in this episode, we've had Jon and Dany reach Winterfell, Jon reunite with Sansa, Arya, and Bran. Bran kind of have the stare down with Jaime. Samwell tell Jon about his heritage, all this, and Daenerys even telling Sam about his father and brother. And then in the same episode, we've had Euron make it back to King's Landing with the Golden Company, Euron fucking Cersei, Theon saving Yara. Like, there was so much that went down in this episode. It's crazy. And like, I guess if you want, we can start at the top, unless there are any particular moments that stand out to you that you wanted to talk about.
No, I think, at least for me, brother, because you're so good about the note taking and everything, and because this is just so new to us, I thought to try and keep some semblance of like order and coherence, we would just probably go by like your notes, because those are probably like the most pivotal moments of the episode, because you've got a keen eye, and we could just unpack those in like a coherent, like orderly fashion. So let's go through your notes, man. What was the first big note that you had from this episode?
Really, it's more about like the first scene of the episode, which was this huge army, including Jon and Arya, or Jon and Dany, actually arriving in Winterfell. Because like the first thing that we saw was this little kid climbing Winterfell the way Bran used to. Like, it kind of drew memories of Bran crawling and climbing around Winterfell from very early in season 1, before he was pushed off that tower. And he's looking at this huge army coming into Winterfell. Arya also watching and seeing Jon and Daenerys and Sandor and Gendry. And then we get a little kind of, sneak peek into one of the carriages, and we see Tyrion poking fun at Varys for being a eunuch. And then we see Missandei with Grey Worm, and they're basically like a full-blown couple now. And then the dragons show up, and it's like this huge, like, welcoming committee, this welcoming party for this entire group that, Jon left however long ago it was, to basically bring back reinforcements to help them win against win the war of the Dawn, the war against the dead. And it was great because, we get this huge army coming in, and then Jon, when he finally gets inside the walls of Winterfell, he sees Bran and he hugs him, and, you're a man. And Bran says, almost. And then goes over to Sansa, hugs her, asks where Arya is. And Sansa, who kind of knows Arya's deal by now, just says she's probably lurking. And then Bran lets them know, like, the Night King has control of one of your dragons. Viserion is under his control, and they're marching south. We need to do something. So that was like the big first kind of big moment of the episode is just this huge party strolling into Winterfell, or flying in the case of, Drogon and Rhaegal. And they show up in Winterfell, and we kind of get the plans laid out. Bran kind of lets us know, like, here's what's going down, here's what we need to do. And that was kind of the first scene. So have any kind of discussion you want to have about that? Or?
Not really much to add. I mean, I like how this show, in small instances like that, can really show and not tell. Like, we know the kind of army that Daenerys is packing, like, through the seasons, because we've seen her, like, build up her forces. But I think also more broadly, it's important to know what that army is going to be doing long term. And I think to see the scope of Daenerys' army, and just really all the human forces against the White Walkers, is just going to make the ultimate battle feel that much more epic. Because I've heard that it's going to be like the biggest battle scene in, like, Game of Thrones history, and they're really going to give it time, and it's going to feel very intense and very epic. So I think when you get something like that, it's just like a slight tell of, we've always known she packed this kind of heat, but when you know what that heat's directed towards, you're just like, oh my God, I can't wait to see this, when it's just totally chaotic and totally in the midst of battle. I think it's going to be awesome. So
yeah, because really, like, there have been a few sort of smaller battles, but like the two major battles that we've seen that took up like an entire episode were the battle at Blackwater back in season 2, and then the Battle of the Bastards, which I believe was in season 6. And the battle at Winterfell is supposed to be bigger than both of them, which is huge, because the Battle of the Bastards was incredible. Like, that was insanity. And I mean, the whole thing with the Battle at Winterfell too is that we got to see kind of that first moment in the trailer when the first undead horse kind of strolls up into eye shot of Winterfell. So, like, that was goosebump inducing. And apparently, like I said, that's going to be happening in episode 3. So we've got one more episode before that. And in this episode, they didn't really do too much to even prepare for it. It was more like you said, it was more like laying the ground, kind of establishing a foundation underneath every character, that kind of thing. So, yeah, man. The next thing that we saw, though, was everyone kind of gathered together in the same hall where, Sansa and Arya tried and executed Littlefinger. And Lyanna Mormont, who was the little girl who was really a badass and, like, was kind of spoke out in favor of Jon Snow, and talking about how he is, as far as she's concerned, like, he's the king of the North, and they kind of sparked everyone getting behind him and crowning him king of the North. She speaks up, and she's unhappy that he gave up his role as king of the North, because, like, they got behind him and they chose him, and he just kind of threw that away. And Jon's sort of defense for that was that he chose to protect the North over keeping his crown, which is cool, but I like that later on in the episode, Sansa kind of calls him out for that, maybe just being like an excuse, and that might not necessarily be the whole truth. We'll get to that later, though. Sansa kind of does say something here, though, about how, like, she didn't prepare enough food, enough resources for everyone that they brought, and the 2 dragons, too. And there was this, like, really tense moment where she said, like, what do dragons eat anyway? And Daenerys was all sassy, like, whatever they want. It was just like, wow, the tension. These two are clearly not off on the right foot. And I love, too, that later on, Dany is just like, your sister doesn't like me. And it's just like, bitch, did you hear yourself in there? You arrogant as hell. But yeah, then Tyrion kind of meets up with Sansa and kind of talks to her. They kind of catch up. They're just kind of like, well, it's good. It's cool that we both survived, kind of thing. Sansa doesn't believe that Cersei will actually follow through with sending her army to help fight the dead, though. And, Tyrion tells her, like, oh, she has a reason to fight. She has a reason to live. She's pregnant. And Sansa drops the line, I used to think you were the cleverest man alive. So Sansa out here challenging Tyrion on his cleverness, on his wit, on his intelligence, because Tyrion has this soft spot for the idea of Cersei being a great mother. Because there was a point a few seasons ago where he even said, like, Cersei's only redeeming quality is how much she loves her children. And then, of course, he added in, of course, and also the great jawline. But Tyrion definitely does have a weakness for Cersei as a mother. And I think that he's letting that cloud his judgment. And that would be why he was willing to believe her when she told him that they would agree to send troops to help. And then there was also a moment with Jon Snow where he was staring at this weirwood tree, and Arya shows up behind him and tells him that, oh, you used to be taller. And they hug, and she shows him Needle, and he shows her. God, I don't remember the name of the sword, but it's the sword that Jeor Mormont gave him. I forget the name of it, but the Valyrian steel sword that Jeor Mormont gave him. So they just have this great bonding moment. And John, I know you told me before we even went live that was probably your sort of standout, your favorite scene. So talk about it, man.
It just, man, for somebody that's been watching this, and has done rewatches like with you and, otherwise, you get to see over and over again, like everything the Starks have been through. So it just feels like a moment that was so earned. For just the family to just be together like that. Just to kind of step back a little bit, though, because I wanted to comment on something else that you said about Daenerys and Sons' meeting. I thought that was really cool because it really shows the character transformation of Sansa specifically. Like, I don't think Daenerys has undergone like that much growth, at least personality wise. I think she's still of the belief, that like might makes right, and I've got the dragons and this and that. But Sansa, to go from the first season where she was like, I mean, I hate to put it like this, but the stereotypical woman, like in that time period, where like, oh, Joffrey's going to be a great king and I love him, and, being the dutiful wife, to just really being this confident, like, I have seen some shit and I am not about to like take any more shit than what I've already dealt with.
Yeah.
Between like, Joffrey's cruelty and then Ramsay Bolton and everything, like it's hardened her, but not in a way that's made her lose perspective from what matters. And I think that's
it's like her experiences, her adversities, but also her just spending as much time with Cersei as she did, learning under Cersei's wing in a way what kind of tactics are required to win these games.
Yeah, for sure. And that little exchange between Daenerys and Sansa, like, maybe I'm just overreading it because it is the final season, like everything's up for grabs, but it did seem like kind of a power play, like, oh, whatever they want, so you could even be on the menu if you cross me, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of how I interpret it too, was like whatever they want. So if they come around and start burning your soldiers alive, I'm not going to stop them, that kind of thing.
Which again, this is a similar theme we've seen in shows like Walking Dead and others. Like, we really shouldn't be fearing the White Walkers. Like the real central conflict to me is still man versus man, because everybody's got their own political interests in this and that, and it's going to compromise the grander cause. This existential threat facing them with these White Walkers, marching forward and having a dragon now and tearing down the wall, and yet these people still feel the need to have their proverbial dick measuring contests. Well, I've got the dragons, and Cersei's like, oh, well, we'll just use the Iron Bank and fund this army, and like everybody's still making their power plays as if the throne is still the only thing that matters. But no good for a throne if there's nobody to rule, and that's really what's at stake here. So I just thought that was a very interesting scene. But to get back now to Jon and Arya, I thought that was a very tender moment. Especially too, for me as an Arya fan, you always kind of worry, like, with her training and everything. Like, I didn't know how she'd end up, like if she would kind of lose her sense of fidelity and loyalty to her family. That sense of love that she has, but then you just see them hug, and it's like, okay, she hasn't totally gone off the deep end,
right?
Which is really nice. And Jon, God knows the motherfucker needs a win whenever he can get it, because it has been a rough time for him. So yeah, I really enjoyed that, man. I thought it was cool.
Yeah, that was a really neat moment. I love that, like, Arya is like this cold-hearted killer now, but her big bro can still put a smile on her face. I love that. That's so sweet.
Yeah, dude, absolutely. So what else you want to talk about?
Because we even saw, I mean, back in season 1, before everyone got split up, Jon and Arya were very close. Like, they were his favorites, basically. Like, they were, and I mean, Jon gave her Needle. Like, he had Needle made for her. He had Needle forged for her. So, like, that was like this huge deal for her, because that was coming off of a conversation she had with her dad, where her dad basically told her, like, yeah, you're basically going to be sold to the highest bidder. Like, it just like, no, I know you want to be a fighter. I know you want to be a warrior. So let me hook you up. Jon gets Arya more than anyone.
Yeah, and I think it's so meaningful too because like Arya saw her father get beheaded firsthand, like she was in the crowd for that. Um, her mother got slaughtered, Red Wedding got slaughtered, and like so the Starks, they know loss, they know death, they know that level of fear and level of pain. So when you can reconnect with somebody that you're genuinely close with, because Arya and Sansa too, I think the adversity really made them closer. Because remember, in the first season, they were pretty much your like typical sisters, like on most TV shows. They didn't like each other, whatever. But they definitely grew closer for this. But yeah, like you said, Arya and Jon have always been close, which is why I think it was more meaningful for me. Because for her to come back after everything she lost and still find him there, I think for anybody that's like rooting for the Starks, it just kind of hits them in the feels a little extra hard. So yeah, good shit, man. Good shit.
Yeah. All right. So then we get a really interesting scene where Qyburn tells Cersei that the dead have broken through the wall, and you're expecting her to be like, "Oh shit, like maybe we should send some troops up there to help." But no, she literally just said, "Good, bitch." Fucking hate her.
Yeah.
There were two things. There were two things that Cersei did in this episode that made me hate her more than I even ever had before. And I already hated her a lot. Like she was already number one on my like can't wait to see die list. And now she's somehow created even more separation between herself and number two. Like she is just the worst.
Yeah, Cersei's pretty fucking terrible. That's really all I have to say about that, though. I really don't have any kind of extended commentary. So if you have anything you want to add and kind of give your analysis, or we can move on.
Yeah, actually, just kind of backtrack a little bit. Paul in chat made a good point that Arya looks like her aunt. I do, you know what? I wonder if that's the reason why Arya and Jon bonded, because Arya, everyone always says like she's that she-wolf like her aunt Lyanna, and Lyanna was Jon's mother.
Right.
I wonder if that's why they were able to get close, because like Jon literally has, Lyanna Stark's blood in him, and Arya has a lot in common with Lyanna. So it kind of makes sense that they'd be close.
Yeah, dude, for sure. I completely agree with you. Absolutely.
All right. So then we get to some of my favorite stuff in this episode after the whole, Cersei being happy that the dead broke through the wall thing. Euron Greyjoy. I got to tell you.
Fucking MVP of this episode, right?
He's so good. I know. Like Cersei is like that sort of top heel character. Like she's the main antagonist of the entire show from beginning to end. Euron, though, like Euron is the guy that you love to hate. Euron is hilarious. He's charismatic. I just love this dude. And he's got the Golden Company on the Iron Fleet, and they're sailing to King's Landing. And he's got Yara tied up. And when she asks why he hasn't just killed her already, he basically says, like, he basically just keeps her around for someone to talk to, since everyone in the Golden Company is mute. And she tells him that he picked the losing side. And he was just like, yeah, well, if that's true, then I'll just take the Iron Fleet somewhere else. And then he gets up in her face and he goes, but first, I'm going to fuck the queen.
He is just the perfect smarmy fucking douchebag. It's amazing.
He's great. I'm actually in a fantasy Game of Thrones league with Abel. I don't know if Abel's even in chat right now.
I think he still is, yeah.
Yeah, and I have Euron on my team. So now every time he does something, I'm just like, yeah, Euron, you got this.
Yeah.
It's pretty great. Oh man. So then we actually get, like, he actually gets to King's Landing, and that's like the next thing that we see is him talking to Cersei, him and Captain Strickland, who is the captain of the Golden Company. They've got 20,000 men. A few died in transit, and there was this great interaction too, where they were like, a few died in transit, and then Euron was just like, they cheated at dice, or maybe I cheated. Someone cheated. That was great. I loved that. So they got 20,000 men. They also have 2,000 horses. But, and this really disappointed Cersei, no elephants, no war elephants, Jon. I'm just devastated. What is this?
God, how can you even have a war without war elephants? It's criminal. Yeah, man, but Euron was fucking great tonight. I love how self-assured he is while also being batshit fucking crazy. Like, he really toes that line, I think, perfectly to me.
Yep. So then Euron kind of takes a few steps towards Cersei, and of course the mountain is there, the zombie mountain is there, and he kind of takes a step forward too, and he's just like, don't fuck with her. And Euron tells her that he would like to speak with her in private, and he's obviously try and hook up with her. And she insists on waiting until after the war. If you want a whore, buy one. If you want a queen, earn her, were her exact words. And then he basically just talks about all the shit that he's done to try and earn her. And as she's walking away, she kind of gives him a look and he smiles about it and talks some shit to the zombie mountain, which I'm sure he doesn't understand anyway, because like I said, he's a fucking zombie. And then we see them later and they hooked up. So, but the thing is, like, Cersei and Euron do end up hooking up, and Euron kind of asks about Robert Baratheon, Cersei's ex-husband, Cersei's dead husband. And she kind of explains how Robert used to be with a different woman every night and all that shit. And she basically just says, like, I want to be left alone now. And she also tells him that he's like the most arrogant man that she's ever met and that she likes it. And then she says she wants to be left alone. And he puts his hand on her belly and says he's going to put a prince in it. Oh, man. And like, she had this look on her face too, where it's kind of left up to interpretation. Because I know there were some people in the Discord that were like, oh, she has this look like there's already one in there. But then there was also someone else that said like, oh, she had a look on her face like, I can use this.
Yeah. I mean, who knows what they're like. She always has struck me as somebody that plans like 5 moves ahead. Yeah. So even though she's already got like something going on in there, she's probably like, well, if I can make him seem like that's viable, if I can make it seem like that's viable to him, that, you know, that plan could come to fruition, you know, I could use that as leverage. Because we already know she doesn't give a shit about what's going on the outside. Like, she cares about her game and what she's playing. And so I think she just feels like she's got a valuable piece like in her court. So always scheming. I really can't wait to see her go down. Can't happen soon enough.
Yeah. So then one of the most, there were 2 really important scenes that happened that weren't, you know, a part of something at King's Landing or Winterfell. And really, they might have been King's Landing, but they didn't involve like the main characters that we associate with those places. So at King's Landing, it didn't get associated with Cersei, and at King's Landing or at Winterfell, obviously didn't get associated with Jon, all them. But Bronn is having one hell of a good time with 3 women. I'm sure that they were paid for, but they are all getting naked. One of them's riding him, and then next thing you know, Qyburn shows up of all people. He's just delivering all kinds of news today. And he tells Bronn, and I'm not going to try and go word for word here, but he basically tells Bronn that Cersei has a shit ton of gold waiting for you right outside the door here that she plans on using to pay you to kill both of her brothers. So Cersei now wants, obviously we know she wants Tyrion dead because she blames Tyrion for the death of her father, which is legit, and all 3 of her children, which is extremely not legit. And she just kind of hates him and wants him dead. But Jaime too now. She wants Jaime dead too now because he left her. Because we saw at the end of season 7, Jaime leaving her to go up and help fight the battle for the Dawn, the battle of Winterfell, the living versus the dead. Jaime, actually having morals now, recognizes how important it is. So he goes on up to Winterfell to try and help. And Cersei immediately turns on him. Like the one person that she has loved her entire life, the closest person to her. And immediately, as soon as he doesn't do exactly what she wants, she literally pays someone to kill him.
Yeah, it's kind of a bitch move, huh?
This is the second thing, though. This is the second thing in this episode. Like, the first was her saying good about the dead breaking through the wall. But the second thing is this, her paying Bronn to kill both of her brothers. And like, Bronn has already been in the service of both of them. Bronn got introduced into the series through Tyrion getting him to be his champion in a trial by combat to keep his life. And then Jaime, like, he saved Jaime's life multiple times, I feel like, at least the one time with the dragon. So, like, yeah. And now she wants him to kill Jaime and Tyrion. Like, oh, this bitch.
Yeah, she's kind of fucking terrible. I honestly can't believe, too, that, like, I mean, I can believe the level of malice and cruelty, like, having the best friend do it. What I can't believe is that she's also like lumping Jaime in with that. Like, I figured there was going to be tension with them, and I figured it was going to like boil over. I did not think though that we were already going to like go to that kind of place in the first episode of season 8.
Well,
like,
and the thing too is like I'm sure that there are a lot of people who are just like, oh no, Bronn would never do that. But like we've already seen Bronn turn down an opportunity to save Tyrion's life for money. Because when Tyrion was being held captive and had to choose a champion for his trial by combat for the death of Joffrey, Bronn just straight up he just rejected him. He was just like, no, like I'm not going to do it for free again. Like you can't pay me. There's no amount of money that you could give me to fight the Mountain. I'm just not going to do it. Like I can't enjoy a castle and a wife when I'm dead. And if I have to fight the Mountain, I'm probably going to be dead. So like, yeah, he just straight up like he's supposed to be a friend to Tyrion and now Jaime, but we've seen instances of him in the past choosing money over that friendship.
I mean, I can't necessarily blame him for his pragmatics. It's still a shitty situation to be in, though.
I mean, obviously, Cersei is at the core of the problem, but still, though, like really, I'm not trying to put any blame on Bronn. I understand his position, and I kind of understand like if he would choose to follow through and take the money and try and get the job done, I would understand it. I wouldn't be happy about it, but I would understand it from his perspective. Cersei is the problem here. Cersei is the bitch that's trying to make a guy kill people that he's called friends just because, you know, she doesn't like him. That's all it really is.
Yeah, she's really fucking terrible. Like, again, we know how evil she is, but I just think it's still raw, like to see that evil like on display, and it's just like, oh my god, I just want to punch her. So however she gets hers, I hope it's as cathartic as humanly possible for those watching that are against her, because I know she has her fans, but you know, she's got to bite the bullet eventually, because there's no way. Like, I'm not saying this show is governed by like fate or karma, although there are like certain entities and stuff that, you know, have like given guidance and stuff like that, but there's got to be a bad fate coming her way. Like, there's just got to be, like, with all this shit. So we'll see.
I mean, she's already had a pretty awful fate with all 3 of her children dying before she did.
Yeah. So I guess if nothing else, she's suffered, but I'm ready to just, you know, snuff her out completely and the suffering, just get straight to the killing. So hopefully, and who knows, you know, I have a feeling, you know, because we've seen, like you said, Bronn choose money before and just like choose his own life. Maybe this time around he will choose friendship, but something in me doubts that. So we'll see what happens.
Well, and I was even thinking like how almost ironic would it be if Jaime ends up being the brother that has to talk his way out of getting killed, because we already know Tyrion has done that countless times and Jaime has always been the fighter. But now we're in a situation where the guy who trained Jaime how to fight with his left hand is trying to kill him.
Yeah. And we've never really seen him have the oratorical skills of a Tyrion. So
right. Well, not previously, but I think that might be what it comes down to. It might come down to Jaime having to basically bargain in a way with Bronn and explain to him, like, dude, if you don't help us win this war, there's not going to be anyone left for you to get a castle from. There's not going to be any women left for you to make your wife. Everyone will die. And
yeah,
even if it's just a matter of like, let's just put this off until after this situation is handled, then you can try and kill me. Like, I think Jaime might end up talking Bronn into joining the cause rather than killing him and Tyrion.
Yeah, that's what I think is so frustrating about Cersei, because there's evil, and then there's just evil and also willfully ignorant. And I think that's what really makes me detest her, is that she's clearly in the latter camp. Like, it's bad enough that she's evil, and you know, I vibe with evil, you know, 6 ways to Sunday.
Yeah.
But you know, it's the willful ignorance, because I'm like, even if you're evil, like, you're not going to have a kingdom. Like, there's no kingdom if there's no one in it to rule or anything. Like, you know, self-preservation. I think maybe that's like the final straw with me to her, is she's not really showing much aptitude, much intelligence in the face of this situation. And yeah, I could see Jaime reasoning with Bronn like that, because hey, again, it goes back to why he wouldn't fight the Mountain. You know, you can have all the gold in the world, you can sleep with as many women as you want, but if everybody's dead, you know, you're not gonna have any coin to spend. And if you're dead, then well, everything's pointless for you that you're doing. So let's just fucking focus on the task at hand. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Oh man. All right. So after the the Cersei situation, paying Bronn to kill her brothers, we got to see Theon saving Yara. This is what I mean when I say so much happened in this episode. Like, sure, it was like a foundational episode and they laid a lot of groundwork for moving forward, but a lot actually happened here too. I mean, Theon coming for Yara, saving her. There was this great moment where he untied her and she headbutted the shit out of him and then reached out to help him get up. Like, you know, like my headbutt to you was like you getting your just desserts, but now we're even and I can help you out and we can do this together. And she is smart, obviously. She's one of the smartest people on the show. And she says that she thinks that they should take the Iron Islands back since Euron has got the entire Iron Fleet out here at King's Landing. Theon tells her, like, you're my queen, I'll go where you command. But she knows intrinsically that he would rather go to Winterfell to help fight for the Starks. And she tells him to go do it. And they do the what is dead may never die thing. And then she tells him, but kill the bastards anyway.
Yeah, you know, honestly, I don't know. When this series is over, because I'm guessing, too, there will be a time where you and I want to rewatch the entire series.
For sure.
Theon may go down as one of my favorite characters because they really are, like, committed to this theme of redemption for Theon. Because he was revealed as, like, such a shitbag, you know, betraying the Starks and everything and this and that. But, of course, that didn't work out for him because Ramsay Bolton and everything. And, you know, J Scum love those torture scenes. Like, you know, still puts a smile on my face. But then you see Theon, who became Reek, you know, just broken psychologically, physically, and everything, just slowly redeem himself, you know, saving Sansa at one point. You know, that was the first big thing he did. And then, you know, even though he abandoned ship when his sister's, like, fleet was under attack, and, you know, Euron was fucking, you know, doing on his bullshit, I guess. And then for him to come back and save Yara, like, it's just, he's taking these incremental steps. And to be quite honest, like, I wouldn't be surprised, because I've never seen in any TV show or movie, like, redemption, especially of an adult-oriented nature like the show is, I've never really seen it end well. So I wouldn't be surprised if his redemption ultimately comes in the form of his blood. Like, if he dies at Winterfell helping the Starks, like, I offer up my life for every other sin that I've committed, kind of thing. But I just think his arc has been, it's been authentic. It hasn't felt rushed. Like, everything he's done and everything he's gone through, like him clawing his way back to some semblance of humanity, it feels earned. And I like that. And that's what I think, again, when we're talking about the show lengths of being like an hour and a half, and you can let these things breathe. I don't feel like, okay, this is the resolution we got to get to, and then they real quick zip from, like, A to Z. You know, you've really seen his struggle play out, and you've really seen, like, people think he's a coward or think that he's broken in a lost cause. And yeah, there are times, like, he does display cowardice or poor moral reasoning, but he's like, he still wants to make it right. And I just find that a very compelling character, a really compelling character. So, like, even thinking on this episode tonight, like, I know I always tell you, like, Arya and Tyrion are my favorites, but I think just for the substance and the depth, I don't think Theon should be as overlooked by me or by others, you know, that he might have been. Because, yeah, this was really good shit tonight. I enjoyed it. It felt meaningful. And again, that send-off, it wasn't overly sentimental or sappy. You know, it was like, you do what you got to do. You know, you save me, we're square. We're going to do our thing. And hopefully by the end of this thing, we're both alive. I doubt it. I think Theon is dying. That's how I think his redemption will come. But it felt like a very earned moment to me. And I really like that.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing is, even if Theon doesn't make it through to the end of the season, he still felt like he's had a very complete character arc because, and honestly, it would almost feel like an even more complete character arc at the end if he does die, because he kind of started out as this, like, snot-nosed little, like, oh, you can't tell me what to do, little brat. And that character is the character that kind of took over Winterfell and, you know, burned the two farmers' boys and acted like that was Brandon Rickon and killed Sir Roderick and I forget the other guy, the maester, I forget his name, the Winterfell maester that he killed. And, like, just kind of fucked everything up. Like, he couldn't even chop a guy's head off without fucking it up. And then, Ramsay broke him.
Yeah, he did.
Ramsay broke Theon and he turned him into Reek. And to the point that Yara tried to save him and he wouldn't even let her.
Yeah.
And like now, I think that when he saved Sansa and helped her get out of Winterfell, and then obviously had a little bit of help from Brienne in the woods, I think that that was him trying to kind of take back his name a little bit. Like he wasn't Theon yet at that point, but I think having saved Yara now, I think we can call him Theon again safely, because I think that was like the last little shred of reek leaving him.
I just think it's very impressive that the show even let him have that.
Yeah.
I think in any other context, like once he hit that bottom, like there was no crawling out. Like in other words, I feel like if it was any other show, like he would have just been Reek for the remainder of the series. But to see him kind of bounce back, I don't know. It's just really cool, and I'm curious. And that's the thing. I'm curious how his presence in Winterfell, even though it's well intentioned, how it will be received, because history isn't so easily forgotten. Like we see how history has followed these characters for all these years. So, Theon isn't just going to be embraced with open arms, so to speak. So I'm very curious, like what the follow up to that's going to be in future episodes. I'm really excited for it.
Yeah. Like there are two guys, I would say, who have had very complete character arcs and will probably end up dying honorable deaths. And Theon is one of them, and Jaime is the other. Like, I hope Jaime doesn't die. I hope he lives. But if he does die, it's going to be one hell of a heroic death.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
All right. So after Theon gets to Yara, saves her, and then gets told to go help fight at Winterfell, we get to my favorite character in the show, Davos. I love Davos. He's not actually my favorite character, but he's probably like, if we were doing Fave Fives for Game of Thrones, he would definitely make it. Like, I think my Fave Five would be like Tyrion, Arya, Euron, Davos, and Tormund. That'd be my Fave Five for Game of Thrones, for sure. So yeah, Davos explains to Tyrion about how like the Northerners and the Free Folk pledged their loyalty to Jon, not to Daenerys, and that they don't know Daenerys and they're stubborn, and that you're going to have to earn their loyalty. And there was this cool little play on words where Tyrion said, "So what are you proposing?" And he literally said, "I'm proposing a proposal." Like, he thinks Jon and Daenerys should get married to just kind of reinforce how much Jon trusts her and how much the people that pledge their loyalty to him should trust her as well. And they talk about respect and how the young kind of keep elders at a distance through respect. And then Varys has this great line where he says that they do that because they don't want to kind of be forced to recognize the truth, which is that nothing lasts. And him saying nothing lasts while staring at and talking about Jon and Daenerys is just like this terrifying, ominous moment where it's like, oh God, Varys, why do you got to say these words around these people? Because like we already kind of think that one or both of them will probably die, but like they're really driving it home. Like, yeah, one of them is totally gonna die.
Like neon lighting sandwich board, just pointing at him like dead. Yeah, man. I really don't have much to say here. So I guess this will just be more you if there's anything more you want to add to this, because this wasn't one of my stronger points of commentary, but I enjoyed it.
No, I just really wanted to bring that up because of Varys's line there about how nothing lasts. It's just like, damn, Varys, why you got to do us dirty like that?
Absolutely.
Because like the thing is, like, even though we've all kind of admitted, like, yeah, one or both of them's probably gonna die, we would still prefer it if they didn't, you know?
Absolutely. I know, no doubt about that.
All right, so then we do get to kind of hear what Jon and Dany were talking about while these three guys were talking about them. And Dany, this is the point where Daenerys tells Jon that his sister Sansa doesn't like her. And Jon just kind of reminds her, like, Sansa doesn't even know you, and she didn't like me either when we were growing up. And then Daenerys, being the bitchy queen that she is, says she doesn't have to be my friend, but I am her queen, so she will learn to respect me.
I'm telling you, man, all these humans on their bullshit, it's not gonna go well, man.
Oh, I know, dude. Daenerys' attitude is just rotten.
I'm telling, like, I know in like past shows that you and I talk about, like personally, I use the term like smoke screen because I think they're actually something like this. I mean, the White Walkers certainly aren't a fucking smoke screen. They're a very legitimate threat, but I still think the primary conflict again is man versus man, because you see how their egos are gonna kill everybody. Like, it's one thing for a White Walker to, like, I don't know, stab somebody or however they're gonna, slaughter fucking people. But it's another thing to allow that to happen because your own ego got in the way. And I personally find that more offensive. Like, a greater offense is just, you could have prevented this, but you were on your bullshit and you couldn't just see past it. And fucking Daenerys, it's like, oh, she will respect me. Like, again, do you people not fundamentally understand the fucking cut? See, this is what's kind of, I won't say it has annoyed me about the show, because, like, I get it. You need that, like, internal conflict. Like, things can't go seamlessly. You can't just go and fight the walkers. I get that. It's just so aggravating when it's like, royalty will not matter when you're all dead. Get it through your fucking skull. Jesus. Oh God, I could not be a hand to any of these people, because I'd be executed, because I would look at them and without a filter I'd be like, you are so fucking stupid. What? Oops, well, guess I'm getting decapitated. But yeah, I couldn't, man. The anxiety, I talk to you about anxiety all the time. The fucking anxiety of hearing these people, she will call me queen. Uh-huh. Yeah, she will. Oh God, we're all gonna die.
See, I just feel like that's why you relate so much to Tyrion, though, because that was definitely his reaction when she burned the Tarleys alive.
Oh God, yeah. Oh God, yeah.
It's just like he just had that look of like, oh my God, I thought she wasn't the Mad Queen. What is this?
Yeah, no, dude, Tyrion. I think we relate on two levels. One, because we're both disabled, so like solidarity with that. But then two, it's just like, man, the bullshit he has to deal with, man. My sympathy, because he's looking at that and he's like, oh God, this is one hell of a mess to clean up. So yeah, I hope he can still talk some sense into her. I don't see it though. I don't know, dude. Like, I get that everybody like hates Cersei. I almost, in my own way, kind of hate Daenerys too, though, when I see shit like this. Because I'm like, you're supposed to be better than this. I mean, there have been times where I'm like, I'm down with her, like when she liberated the slaves and everything. I was like, that was cool. But, wholesale violence in like every situation, it's just, it's not a good look, Chief. But yeah, what came after this, man?
Well, as Jon and Daenerys are walking along, they do get some news from the Khal of the Dothraki group that she brought over with her. He basically informs her that the dragons have only eaten 11 goats and 18 sheep, which is apparently barely eating, according to Daenerys. And we get this beautiful moment where they walk up on these two dragons with this gigantic pile of burnt bones, and they kind of bond with them a little bit. And Jon actually ends up being able to ride Rhaegal, which, can I just point out, and I love this. So you remember what the three dragons' names are, right, John? The three, including the one that's now undead.
I'll admit that it's a bit vague to me in this moment, brother. So recap what the names are.
So the one that Jon was able to ride was Rhaegal. The one that Daenerys usually rides and also rode in this episode is Drogon. And the one that died and was brought back as a white dragon was Viserion, right?
Right.
And what I love is that if you think about who those three dragons were named after, Rhaegal was named after, Rhaegal and Viserion were named after Daenerys's brothers, Rhaegar and Viserys. The two brothers that she had. Viserys was the one that we actually saw at the beginning of the season, who was a total dick to her. And Rhaegal was her brother that ended up being Jon's father. So the dragon that was named after Jon Snow's dad is the one that he got to ride.
Damn.
Yeah, I love that. And then Drogon, obviously named after Khal Drogo, and which dragon was staring directly into the eyes of Jon Snow when he was making out with Daenerys.
Oh man, that scene, man.
It's like, I love it though, because it's like Khal Drogo is there staring at this dude making out with Daenerys. It's just crazy. I love that the dragons are representative of the people that they're named after, because Rhaegal is the one bonded to Jon, who was Rhaegar's son. Viserion was the one that ended up dying, which obviously we know that Viserys is dead, but also Viserion ended up turning on Daenerys, which Viserys also did. So it's like, it really matches there. And Drogon is the one that Daenerys is bonded with most, and that was her fucking man. That was Khal Drogo.
Yeah. Oh God.
And if you remember, I think it was season 5, the season where she was trying to run Marine, like as like the queen of Marine almost.
Yeah.
Drogon was the one that she didn't lock up. Drogon was the one that was like free and wild, like the fucking Dothraki.
Right. Wow. That is
dude.
Detail.
I love it. I love it so much.
Great shit, man.
Yeah. So the dragons, they've been barely eating. So we get this beautiful, amazing dragon riding scene with Jon riding Rhaegal and Daenerys riding Drogon. They ride through the north, and I love the way that this just looked. It was just an experience to see. And they ended up landing in this valley with all these waterfalls, and Daenerys is just like, we could live here, we could hide here, no one would ever find us, we could stay for 1,000 years. And Jon's just like, oh, we would get really old. And he tells her about how cold it is, and then she's just like, keep your queen warm. And that was when they started making out, and Drogon started just staring at Jon. And it was hilarious.
God, I was so anxious aardvark during this. I am like, that eye contact.
It was hilarious. He was just glaring at him. And Jon knew too. Jon, like, he even opened his eyes because, like, that feeling when someone's staring at you and you might not actually be able to see it, but you just feel it. Jon knew, man. He felt the leer of the dragon.
Yeah, that dragon was like, come on, show me your vinegar stroke. Do it. And just like, I wish a motherfucker would.
I can't finish if I don't get eye contact.
Exactly. Oh my God. Yeah, definitely a standout scene for this, for sure. That was crazy.
Love that. Yeah, that was great. So then when we get back to Winterfell, we see Gendry made a dragon glass axe for Sandor Clegane, which I thought was badass. But of course, because Sandor is just the most miserable cunt in all of Westeros, he starts poking fun at Gendry, talking about, the wildling with the wildlings, all the people there that were forging weapons were either cripples or what was the other thing that he said? Cocksuckers, cripples or cocksuckers. Which are you? And Gendry's just like, why you gotta fuck with me, man? I just took an axe. And then Arya shows up and she's just like, hey, leave him alone. And then we get this great face off between her and Sandor, where he's just like, you left me to die. And then she was just like, yeah, I robbed you first. And yeah, they just and he's just like, you really are a cold-hearted bitch, aren't you? And then he walks away. I love the two of them. Their relationship has been beautiful throughout the season.
I just love that she doesn't tolerate his shit. Like,
she might be the only one too. Like, I mean, I guess the Mountain, but he's an asshole and no one wants to like him. So fuck.
I mean, because I'll be honest. The Hound, like, early on, I really fucking hated him. I'm still like really annoyed by him. I think part of me is glad he's traumatized, but I'm just glad. Gotta get a little bit of scumbag in there. I'm just glad that Arya though, like, just stands up and this is why she's one of my favorites. Like, she does not give a fuck. Like, she has got a goal. You could say that she's myopic towards that goal. Tunnel vision. But I just love that, like, she fears nobody, and I think that's why I took a shining to her like very early on, because even when Sansa was all like, oh, Joffrey's so wonderful, I'm gonna marry him, she's just like, bitch, Joffrey's fucking terrible. So yeah, for her to just give it right back to him, really cool. I too love their dynamic. I think it's one of the more unique relationships on the show, and definitely not as anxiety inducing as what we got in the prior scene. So I'm good over here.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me of that one scene in the one Harry Potter movie. Do you remember the one where Hagrid is keeping his full-blooded giant brother in the woods, and his name is Grop, and it grabs Hermione, and she just gets all straight with him, and it's just like, Grop, no! And she's like really straight with him, and he listens to her. That's kind of how Arya and Sandor are.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Oh, it's adorable. All right. So after that whole scene with Sandor, Arya just kind of sticks around and hangs out with Gendry, and they kind of reconnect a little bit. And there might have been some sparks flying a little bit low key. But yeah, man, this was a really cool kind of interaction where she asks him if he can. I think she asked him if he could make a dragon glass version of the cat's paw dagger that Bran gave to her that was used to try and kill him. That belonged to Littlefinger. Like, she asked him if he could make a dragon glass version of that, and of course he was just like, I knew you were just another rich girl. And she had this really cute moment where she was just like, you don't know any other rich girls. And then she turned around, and then as she was walking out, she did this spin move where she stared at Gendry like, oh, they're hooking up.
Yes, so happy for her. Yeah, the feels were definitely on maximum for that. I thought that was fucking adorable.
Yeah, it was great. I loved it. So then after this, though, we kind of get a bit of a confrontation with Sansa and Jon Snow, where she is kind of confronting him about giving up his crown, and he's just kind of doubling down again, like, I did it to protect the North. I did it to protect the North, all that shit. But she does a great job here of calling him out and is like, well, was it really to protect the North, or was it because you love her? And like, there was this silence because, like, yeah, we actually cut away because that was just the final line in that scene. And so, yeah, like, Jon is kind of being exposed a little bit, kind of being called out by Arya here, or by Sansa here, actually, for not actually necessarily having the North's best interest at heart and more just being blinded. Because there was even this great moment where, you know, he was talking about how she's not her father. And then Sansa was just like, she's prettier. And it's just like, oh shit, she's through you, boy.
Oh yeah, no, I'm telling you, that's going to be one conflict that I think really keeps me hooked for the remainder of the season is Sansa and Daenerys. Because again, like, and I love too, because I got to say, for all the characters that I've said like I've either loved or hated, there's also been like just a progression in relationships for me, and I think Sansa's like at the top of that list because I hated her like early on in the show, but like she's seen some shit, man. So like, so when she is just like, so when she just like calls her out, I'm almost like, yeah, Sansa, get it, because I'm just like, no, like she knows. Like I always talk to you like more politically, like, you know, what's legitimate authority and what isn't. I regard Sansa as a legitimate authority for like on bad shit. Like if she says that person ain't right, like I'm inclined to believe her. Because she's been around those types of people enough to know, like, this shit ain't right. So for her to say it, like, and I don't know, to make it more of like a serious comment here, I don't know if the show kind of feels the same way. Like, I'm sure you've heard of the phrase, because like it even goes back with like Memento and films like that, like a reliable narrator.
Yes.
And I think, you know, I wonder if the show's trying to say like, you know, Sansa's kind of a reliable narrator here, given what she's been through.
Yeah. So or maybe it's going the other way and just saying that Jon isn't as reliable a narrator as you might have thought he was.
Exactly. So I think that's kind of a broader way to just try and give my comment a bit more depth besides, you know, fuck that bitch. Just, you know, that Sansa, I think, is kind of the voice of reason here. And a voice, again, you used a great word, seasoned. And we've seen the seasoning of Sansa start to put it in the just the most innocent way that we can.
Yeah.
She's been through. That, you know, that is a voice that is heavy with experience, and it's experience that shouldn't be taken lightly.
Yeah, and there's kind of a lot of underestimating going on with her too, because a lot of people don't know how much she's been through.
And can we also contrast, if we're talking about like knowledge and authority, that the one character that's speaking glowingly of her is the same one whose like biggest phrase to come out of the show is literally, "You know nothing, Jon Snow." Like, just that contrast of a guy that, like, you know, thinks he knows things but maybe not, and then Sansa that's like, no, I've got more of a trained eye, and I've got more of a trained soul, metaphorically speaking, for these experiences. So again, and Jon, I think, will have to make a choice, because I don't see that tension going anywhere. Like, I think there will come a time where we'll have to make a choice between Daenerys or Sansa, and is he going to choose? Well, I mean, technically he's choosing his family regardless, right? But is he going to choose his family like in that way? Or kind of the romantic interest, which, oh my God. But then again, maybe that's changed, because I know there's a scene coming up where Jon does come into some information, so we'll have to see. But yeah, that conflict between Sansa and Daenerys definitely intrigues me going forward.
Yeah, it really, it's going to be interesting when they finally come to a head. I'm really curious if there's going to be a full-blown confrontation, or if they're going to be able to just kind of squash the beef through words.
Yeah, let's hope for the latter. It'd be nice if there was like a peaceful resolution for a change.
All right. So after this meeting between Sansa and Jon, we get a meeting with Daenerys and Sam. And this was where this episode kind of took a turn for the feels, because Daenerys wants to meet Sam because he's the one that cured Jorah of grayscale, which is obviously a huge deal, and she wants to thank him. And of course, Sam is like this adorable, clumsy guy, and he's talking about like he wants to be pardoned for stealing books from the Citadel and taking the sword from his house. And when he mentions his house, he says that it's House Tarly. And immediately Daenerys is like, oh shit. Oops. You didn't really like your family all that much, did you? But like, yeah, so she mentions, she actually does come straight up and just says, you know, your father, I gave him an opportunity to bend the knee and he refused. And then Sam was just like, oh, well, I guess I'll finally be allowed back into my house with my brother ruling over it. And then, of course, it comes back to, well, yeah, see about that. Brother stood with your father. And of course, this is when Sam just kind of broke down. And I felt so bad for him. I definitely got a little bit choked up here. Sam is the character, the actor playing Sam is one hell of a performer. This was a great performance by him. And I just, you know, got a feel for the character. It's devastating. He like, the thing is, like, hearing that his father was dead might have been almost bittersweet. Bitter in the sense that, like, he knows that other of his family members loved him and wanted him, you know, to be healthy, and now they're gonna be in a bad place. But sweet because, like, fuck that guy. He was an asshole. You know, he made Sam's life a living hell. He was gonna do everything he could to prevent Sam from ever having any kind of like credibility or, you know, presiding over anything in his life. But the whole thing with the brother, like Sam and Dickon obviously were a hell of a lot closer than Sam and Randall, his father. So that was definitely a bad, like, that was devastating for Sam. And that was devastating for us viewers because of how well acted it was.
Oh, dude, Sam's great. Another character that I think has had really a wonderful arc in the sense of, like, you can see how his family, particularly his father, like, looks at him. Like, I'll never forget that one dinner scene, you know, with him and Gillian, you know, their family. And, you know, the father, the whole thing's just so tense the whole time. Because I think, you know, especially given the time period, which you're probably going to hear me, like, use that line of reasoning a lot throughout these reviews. But probably thought, oh, you know, my son will be a great warrior, or he'll do this, he'll do that. And you can, like, see, you know, the disappointment and the tension. So yeah, when the father died, like, I was happy for Sam. His father just seemed like a piece of shit. But losing family, though, I think is always hard. And, you know, the way he kind of plays that off, you know, still keeping composed in the face of authority, you know, in the face of royalty, really, and then just like allowing himself to grieve in his own way. It's just a brilliantly acted scene. And I really liked it. Yeah, Sam's good people, man. I'm rooting for him.
Yeah, so. And we kind of follow him outside, and he meets up with Bran, who informs him, and I love this too, that he's been waiting for an old friend, which we would get payoff for later on in the episode. But he wants Sam to be the one to tell Jon the truth about his parentage.
Yeah, ooh, that scene. And no, I think, though, you know, it was so beautiful because we already kind of knew, like, how close Jon and Sam were in prior seasons, and, you know, them being a part of the Night's Watch. But for Bran to put it in no uncertain terms, like, I'm not his brother, you are. Like, if it comes from you, the full weight will be conveyed to him because of the trust and love he has for you. That, like, I even told you what I thought in this scene. I don't want to jump the gun. Like, I genuinely worried for Sam. Because when you get told news of that gravity, especially by somebody you're so close with, I remember once my friend Angel told me, like, when you get heavy news, like, say about death, like, say somebody's dying, it's always important that it comes from like somebody you don't know, because you might feel like a deep sense of like hatred with them. Like, why would you tell me this? Why is this happening? Yeah. Rather than like a loved one, because then you're going to have that negative perception. You're going to have that negative association with them.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I worried about, right? With like Jon and Sam, because Sam's like unloading all this on him. And like that's his brother right there. Like that's his best friend. And like him telling him that, like I was afraid like John might have like a momentary psychosis and like I don't know, slit his throat or something. Because yeah, it's Game of Thrones. Like I never really know what to expect. But yeah, that scene was crazy. Just to know that Sam, we'll get to that in a few moments, but to know that Sam even had that responsibility because of Bran, putting that on him. I was like, oh god damn, man. For a 3-eyed raven, you're a fucking dick. But yeah, so
I mean, let's be real. The original 3-eyed raven was kind of a dick too. Or not the original, but the last one that Bran got the powers from.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
That old tree fuck was a dick himself.
Yeah. Very true. Very true.
Oh man. So yeah, then we actually do get to that moment with Sam stumbling his way into the crypts, literally. And yeah, Jon was there and they embraced. Jon asked him, how was the Citadel? Did you already read every book that was there? And Sam tells him about Daenerys executing his father and brother. And he asks Jon if he would have done the same, or if he would have approved, or if he would have done the same thing. And Jon kind of tries to see things from Daenerys' perspective, but Sam does this really great thing where he points out, like, how many wildlings refuse to bend the knee when and you didn't choose to execute them. You never chose to execute them. You chose to forgive them. You chose to embrace them. You chose to see it from their perspective. And then when Jon said, yeah, but I wasn't the king, that's when Sam drops the fucking bomb. Yes, you were. And then he was just like, no, I wasn't the king. I'm not the king. I'm not the king of the North. I'm already, Daenerys is the queen. And then Sam's just like, I'm talking about the king of the 7 bloody kingdoms. Just like, oh shit, it's happening. He's dropping it. And it was, Jon's real name is Aegon Targaryen, 6th of his name, protector of the realm, all that stuff. And like, you even had just got done talking about how like you were scared for Sam's life because of the look on Jon's face. Like Jon had this look like,
yeah,
motherfucker, you better not be messing with me right now. And like, I think that there's also like kind of an issue there with Jon just not being ready to accept that as his identity yet, because Jon has kind of wrapped up his identity in being a bastard. Like that's who he is. That's who he feels like he is. That's all he's ever known his entire life. And now he's being told that like, not only are you not a bastard, but like, dude, you've got literal royal blood coursing through your veins. And all of these years that you've spent getting shit on for being a bastard has been a lie. Like that would piss anyone off to no end. Like it's devastating and like it's good news, but it's also like shit. Why couldn't I know about this earlier?
Well, just imagine like on the other side of it. And I speak from my own experience to a degree because I mean we've got a lot of familiars in our chat, Paul, Abel, and stuff. I've opened up like about my personal struggle, and I think when you go through like a lot of the adversity and stuff that Jon has gone through, you internalize that and it becomes a core part, as you were saying, of your identity.
Yeah.
So for somebody to more or less say like, oh, your identity is a lie.
Yeah.
And especially, can I just say,
them spitenoids.
Especially too, because here's the interesting thing. Unlike other TV shows or movies where like, say it's backwards, where a person like does think they're royalty and it's like, oh, you're not. So the identity was inherently positive to begin with. It wasn't a positive identity that Jon was walking around with. Like he was very alienated and marginalized. So to know that like you endured all this shit, which I think in the end, I will say this, it's an interesting point because I do think that'll make him like a great ruler long term, is that he's seen the other side of being ostracized and alienated, and I think now being on the other side of the fence, like it instills in him and it engenders in him a sense of empathy and compassion that clearly Daenerys lacks. No offense to Sansa, but I think
Can I say it? Daenerys Kamala Harris Targaryen over here.
Exactly. Yeah, you're not even wrong. Sansa, no disrespect to her, but I almost feel like she's seen a bit too much shit. Like really for her, it should be about regaining the Stark house specifically and getting that back in order, not ruling like everything. Fuck Cersei, obviously. So yeah, like I feel like Jon's the only one, given his arc again, being having been affected by that ostracism and everything, and then coming back and being like, oh, well, now I'm reclaiming my royal identity. But it's still going to be a struggle for him. And that's why I'm so glad, actually. I think the greatest strength of the season so far is that they got this out the first episode. Because, again, the other 5 are going to be long as fuck. So we're going to need to let breathe this almost existential crisis now that's been heaped on Jon's shoulders. Like, he's got to reconcile, like, this is who I've always been, but this is who I really am. And there's a distinct difference in those two things. So I think that's going to be a struggle that's really going to play out for some magnificent television, I think. And if it resolves the way that I would hope it would, with him embracing who he actually is and making peace with who he thought he was all these years, all hail, king of everything. So let's do it.
Do you think that Jon might end up on the throne by the end of the year?
I think he's a top contender, and for the reasons I just stated. Like, I think it's...
I don't know, man. I think he is going to sort of, maybe not necessarily reject his heritage or reject his parentage, but reject a name change and kind of reject allowing his identity to be changed based on that. And I really don't think he wants to rule. I really don't. Like, maybe he's the ruler that the kingdoms need, and maybe even the ruler that the kingdoms deserve, but I don't think he wants to be a ruler, man.
I gotta tell you too, since we're at this scene now, and I feel like it wouldn't be jumping the gun as much since we're here, I worry about him, like, from a safety vantage point as it relates to Daenerys.
Yes, because if she finds out, we've already established that she's lacking in compassion to some degree. Like, even though, like, yeah, she wants to free slaves, that more or less kind of comes back to herself because she was a slave once. She doesn't want other people to have to suffer that, but that's not going to stop her conquest. That's not
and just
cutthroat as hell trying to get that Iron Throne.
And just to add a point to what you just said, because I'm so glad you phrased it this way. Freeing the slaves, to me, like, while even I was buying it, because my politics, I'm like, liberate. When you really afforded sober reflection, that was more about her.
Yeah,
in the sense of, like,
because she was putting together an army too.
Well, she was putting together an army, and I think also, and again, it might be me reading like too much into it, but I take away from it, like, I can change your social customs like that, like your institutions, your traditions, your society, and how it's organized is at my mercy. If I want to liberate slaves, I'll liberate slaves. If I want to enslave people and make slaves, I'll make slaves. I'm Daenerys fucking Targaryen. I'm Khaleesi, bitches. I'll do whatever the fuck I want. And, like, that, to me, was kind of the message sent to me. Even though it was a quote-unquote good deed, it was more, whether superficially or otherwise, it was more an exercise of power to me. Just her flexing her muscle and showing, like, hey.
Well, and I was even going to say, like, was she freeing slaves? Yes. Is that a good thing? Yes. But at the same time, did she really free those slaves when she only wanted to use them as, like, I know that she said, like, oh, you can leave now, but they still ended up being in her army, didn't they? Like, she's still putting together an army to get her throne. Like, this has all been a means to an end for her.
Oh, absolutely. And not only that, just to tack on a further point, since we're kind of politically and psychologically dissecting Daenerys here, even Tyrion said, which I think, like, that whole arc was a great microcosm of the whole, and we've talked about this before, like, in, of course, got to put that line in there, over games of Rocket League. We've talked about, like, the fundamental contrast between liberalism and conservatism. Liberalism is like progress is a sweeping thing. Conservatism is, progress is incremental. Daenerys coming in and just bringing the dragons and, like, forcefully liberating the slaves. That was like a wholesale liberation. That wasn't done incrementally. But you can see the fallout from that, though, because if you remember the factions that rose up and even some of the slaves that wanted to return to work. And Tyrion even said, like, yeah, you did a good thing, but it wasn't thoughtfully done, because now, even though you've liberated these slaves, what have you liberated them, towards? You've liberated them towards a greatly unstable society. Like, there's rampant instability here, and these factions rising and chaos amidst. If we're going to do this, there needs to be a structured order. There needs to be a coherent plan, because when you do it as forcefully as you've done it, bedlam, a vacuum opens up, and bedlam is the only thing that's left. So I think we even see, again, I look at how Jon governs things. Like, he's very selfless. He's mindful. I'm not saying he's perfect. Like, I do think Sansa, like, points out his blind spots brilliantly, which is why, the best rulers always have intelligent advisors, right? Like around them and shit. But I do think he's more thoughtful than she is. I honestly think like she's probably the most fascistic, probably only to like Cersei's top. But honestly,
I mean, even if you don't want to necessarily say fascistic because of the times and stuff, she's definitely the most authoritarian.
Oh yeah, like Daenerys to me is totally, and again, maybe right behind Cersei, maybe even in some degrees ahead of Cersei. Honestly, she totally to me is.
I wouldn't say she's ahead of Cersei as far as like intention. She's just ahead of Cersei as far as means. Like if Cersei had the resources at her disposal, but Daenerys had, you could bet your ass she'd be a way more rule with an iron fist type than Daenerys is.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Like she is totally like textbook might makes right to me. Yeah. Even if the right she's trying to make is a right that we would all universally want by like some moral law or whatever, like, fuck slavery kind of thing. It's still done in such a way that, okay,
you're taking away a person's right to choose.
Exactly. You're dismantling this one social construct, but what are you putting in its place now? Because now there's a void sucking up everything. And I feel like Jon would be far more mindful. Like if he was to change traditions or customs or just his way of governance, because he's been on the other side, like he's seen the world from many perspectives, both as a member of the Night's Watch and, a bastard and everything else. It's just going to be naturally more substantive because he's naturally more thoughtful, I think, than she is. Yeah. So, yeah. Just wanted to say that because I definitely fear for him that she'll to circle it back around. I fear that she'll kill him now or try to, because it's not the idea to her. I think there's something very megalomaniacal about it. Like, it's one thing. Like if somebody liberates the Seven Kingdoms or governs them justly, it would just be a lot better if I did it. And that's where I think she's coming from. Like, I want to be the one to do it. It's my destiny. And that's what it's really been about. I think I've heard her say like once a season, that's my destiny or that's my birthright or just something to that effect. Like it belongs to me. So it's not even about doing what's right. It's about getting what she thinks she's owed. That is a fundamental difference. Whereas Jon Snow, I think, is about doing what is right. So that's gonna lead to a lot of tension in the bedroom, especially because like she's gonna want to get into it. It's gonna be like, we need to talk.
Yeah.
Oh
God. Sorry, I impregnated my aunt, y'all.
I am gonna be hiding in my shirt so many fucking times for the remainder of all this shit. Like, oh my God. They're gonna be on screen. I'm just gonna be like, no. I'm gonna pull my shirt up, hide my face.
I wonder if there's gonna be like that shit hits the fan moment where she informs him that she didn't bleed this month.
Oh God.
Yeah, like I don't know. Like it's gotta happen, right? She's totally gonna end up pregnant. The last scene of season 7 was them banging, so
oh God, preggers. Oh God.
Preggers with an incest baby that they didn't know was an incest baby until it was too damn late.
Oh God. All right.
I feel like you're just like receding into yourself right now.
Yeah, I'm sufficiently uncomfortable. We can move on.
All right. Well, that was probably my favorite scene in the entire episode was Sam informing Jon of his parentage. And then really my favorite line of the entire show also came from Sam. Really, it was either this one or the old Euron talking about who's going to fuck a queen. That was great too. But Sam telling Jon, you gave up your crown to protect your people, and then asking Jon, would she do the same thing?
Yes.
Perfect way to sum up the differences that we were just talking about.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, nothing more even needs to be said than that because that was as succinct as it gets. So
yeah. So then we had 2 more scenes left. The next one was Tormund Giant's Bane, one of my favorite characters. I freaking love that dude. That interaction he had with Sandor in season 7, still top 5 all-time Game of Thrones dialogues. But yeah, Tormund and Beric Dondarrion find Dolorous Edd, and it was like this funny, like, oh, I hear footsteps, and there was this big confrontation, and then Edd was just like, wait a minute, he's got blue eyes, and Tormund was like, I've always had blue eyes. So but yeah, they kind of run into each other and they have that fun moment, but then they find little Ned Umber dead, hung up on the wall with a spiral of human body parts around him. And that symbol keeps on showing up anywhere the White Walkers have been. And it kind of comes back to the scene that we saw with Bran in the tree with the three-eyed raven when the Night King was originally created by the Children of the Forest. That spiral design was also there with the stones in that kind of field. So we've seen it in that scene, so we know that it kind of comes back to the Night King. But people are wondering now, like, what that symbol might mean, and it's a lot of questions. And I hope we find out the answers before the end of the season, because that's just one of those things where, is there even any point speculating about it when it's so vague?
I wouldn't want to speculate about it now because of how vague it is, but yeah, I mean, it's definitely a point of interest for sure. Just to kind of, co-sign onto that. So is there anything that you want to add, though, that you feel like we could excavate from this?
Well, the thing is, like, the body reanimates. So,
yeah.
Umber's body, it reanimates and it starts screeching, and then Beric, being the certified badass that he is, uses his flaming sword, which I love too, that like when the initial confrontation was, when the two groups met, he lit his sword on fire and then he never bothered putting it away, and they just used that as a torch then. Just like, oh, nothing to see here, just a flaming sword being used to light the way instead of a torch. Nothing, no big deal. And
yeah.
He shoved his flaming sword right into the belly of the white Ned Umber and killed it. And it also lit it, as well as all of the body parts that created that symbol around it, on fire. So a flaming spiral with a dead Ned in the middle of it.
Whew. What an intense, ending. Holy fucking shit. I really couldn't even, gather most of my thoughts. Even now, I don't even really know what to think. It was just, definitely for all the whimsy, and I would even use that word, for all the whimsy of some scenes, for all the affection and joy in some scenes, which we're not used to in this universe. I think it was I thought that they would unload all the affection and stuff on the finale, but now I'm concerned for the series finale. But just to end on that note, it's no, we're still Game of Thrones, motherfucker. Don't forget where you are.
Well, that wasn't the last scene, though. There was one more scene after that.
Oh shit, I might have missed it actually then, because where I was watching it. Yeah, so walk us through it.
Jaime shows up in King's Landing.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I personally missed that. So that's going to be all you.
Yeah, dude, the last thing that we see is, or I'm sorry, not King's Landing, in Winterfell. I'm getting my cities mixed up. Jaime shows up in Winterfell, and the first, you know what? Since you didn't see it, we'll do this. Who do you think the first person he made eye contact with was, John?
If I remember from the tweets I saw, which now I have context thanks to you, it was Bran.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God. And that was the whole tease from earlier, though, when Bran said to Sam, hey, I've been waiting for an old friend. Oh my God, the dude that pushed you out of a window however many years ago is here in Winterfell. Obviously, you knew he was coming because you're the three-eyed raven and you can see this shit, but you're the first person to make contact with him and greet him. And this is going to be a really interesting next episode, because there was a little preview for episode 2 right after the credits rolled. And it looked to me like they had Jaime on trial. They were trying him for his crimes against the Starks. So I'm really curious to see how that turns out.
How much do you want to bet, just kind of spitballing here, because I know we're close to wrapping this up now that we've gotten to the episode's end. How much do you want to bet that Bran might even thank Jaime? I would just expect something that weird from Bran, seeing as how he's become very emotionally stoic ever since the conclusion of his arc and everything.
Yeah,
and he may just be thanks, because it was just the way it was meant to go. So thank you for playing your part. And he may even, I don't know, he may thank him in that one way. He may know because he can see everything, and he may even kind of I don't know, make a joke to Jaime, like a dick kind of dig, and just kind of walk away with that satisfaction. Who knows? But I expect it to go not the way that we would expect, because I think anybody looking at this superficially would be oh, he's going to tear him a new one, isn't he? But that's not really the Bran we've come to know since becoming the Three-Eyed Raven.
Well, yeah, and I was even going to say it's not even really Bran anymore. It is the Three-Eyed Raven, and he said that multiple times. Even just last season when Mira said you're not he's. Bran, someone said Bran, and he was just not really. He's not really Bran anymore, because that's the thing, what makes us who we are, our memories, right? Well, Bran doesn't just have his own memories anymore. He's got the memories of pretty much everyone that's ever lived in Westeros in the past and probably even in the future. I don't know exactly how being the Three-Eyed Raven works, but like, yeah, man, when your brain is filled with the memories of so many people, you don't really have an identity anymore. He just is the Three-Eyed Raven. He's just this thing. He's like a magical creature at this point.
Yeah, I really couldn't have said it better, actually.
The only thing he has in common with Bran is Bran's body.
Yeah, so like knowing that it's not even really Bran anymore, we can't expect the Three-Eyed Raven, in the body of Bran, we'll say, to harbor the anger that Bran would have had he been around to like see this confrontation through.
I know, but just the look on Jaime's face when he saw him, though, like he just had this look of like, oh God, I get here and this is what I get here to see. It's like when he saw, oh shit. And then it's like he noticed that Bran was in a wheelchair and he was like, oh God, what did I
do? Really? He's better than me for not saying anything, because I would have looked at Bran in the chair and then I would have looked at my missing hand. I would have been like, so we're square, right?
Yeah, I was even thinking, like, how great would it be if Jaime would like wave at him with his phantom hand?
Yeah. See, we're not
like, hey man, no hard feelings, right?
Yeah, we're not so different, you and I.
But yeah, dude, you're probably right in the sense that as the Three-Eyed Raven, he probably does understand that like what Jaime did was what led to Bran becoming the Three-Eyed Raven. So I don't necessarily know if he'll thank him, just because showing gratitude doesn't really strike me as a move that the Three-Eyed Raven is capable of. But he might just acknowledge, like, you did what you had to do to protect yourself, to protect your children, and it led me to become what I am today. So, like, again, like, no hard feelings.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. And since we're kind of winding this down, I just wanted to make a comment too, like going back to the dragon scene that was like making all that eye contact with Jon Snow. The CGI to me looked really good. Like I loved, I think visually and aesthetically, the show, especially that penultimate scene, because now that I know it wasn't the final scene of like the lighting of the fire and everything, like there were a lot of visually stunning moments in this episode. So just from an aesthetic standpoint, I just wanted to comment like how good I thought this episode looked. And I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a great outing for them. Welcome back. So we got 5 more weeks of this.
Yeah, it was a really great first episode. I really enjoyed it.
So. It's just gonna get more intense from here. So let's fucking do it.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. All right. Well, so funny because we talked before we went live and it was like, oh yeah, I don't expect this to go more than 25 minutes, maybe a half hour. And here we are an hour and 20 plus minutes later and we're just finishing up now. So
I knew it. I kind of knew it. I didn't say anything, but I'm like, I know us. I know how we tend to go on about things, especially me when I've got a point to make. So I'm like, nah.
Well, and I'm glad that you didn't hold back because some of your points were really salient, even with me. And I thought that I picked up on everything that I saw in the episode. So apparently.
Yeah, bringing my A game, because I really thought I was going to be quiet. I was going to be like, yeah, that sounds good. So what's next? So I'm glad I was actually able to lend something to contribute. I hope you guys enjoyed it. This is such a new thing for us. We even got some new people that I know are probably only here for Game of Thrones stuff, but it was great to see you guys. Again, we'll be doing this for 5 more weeks. And if you happen to like wrestling as well, you can stick around because that's really what we are. We're a wrestling channel. We do lots of cool shit, which leads us into this week. Now, the Superstar Shakeup. We're going to be doing live reactions to both Raw and SmackDown this week. You guys know what I'm looking for. Is Kyrie getting shaken up? I have every reason to believe that she is. And who else is going to make the moves? And if you guys are curious what our fantasy lineups would be, we did a fantasy Superstar Shakeup on the channel. So if you want to get hyped before Raw tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, which is when we'll be going live with our live reactions, go check that video out. Me and Ashton both did 10 shakeups to Raw, 10 shakeups to SmackDown, and then we spent a good bit actually talking about our plans for each division with our shaken up rosters, just to kind of give our scheme for the calendar year. So yeah, if you guys are curious where our head was at, because I would personally say, and I think I could speak for you, Ashton, I thought both of our lists were very grounded. I don't think we ever really like got nonsensical, like, oh, Brock Lesnar's going to be exclusive to this brand or whatever. I thought we kept it very realistic, as realistic as one could get, not knowing how exactly it's going to go. And I really enjoyed it. So yeah, if you're looking for some shake-up hype, just go to TwitWow and watch our mock shake-up. If you're just here for Game of Thrones, though, we'll see you next Sunday at 11. So
yeah, absolutely.
And
the reason that we are going live at 11, even though the episode tonight ended at like 10, pretty much on the dot, is because we've been hearing that the last few episodes are going to be like 90 plus minutes. So we're not trying to have to like change the time that we go live. We're not trying to have to go live as soon as the episode ends immediately. We like to kind of have time to digest. And also, I watch it on HBO now. So I like to be able to pause the episode to take notes and then resume the episode. So that makes the episode stretch out a little bit longer. So, there are little reasons here and there as to why we're just sticking with the 11 o'clock live time. And that's when we'll be going live for every single episode of the season this season. And it's the last season, so we're not going to have to worry about anything in the future either. So damn. But yeah, we'll if you're here for the wrestling, we'll see you tomorrow and then Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday. We've got all kinds of stuff coming at you this week. Live reactions, and then I think it is just live reactions this week now that I think about it. So yeah, because it's Raw shakeup, SmackDown shakeup, then NXT. Then on Thursday, we're going to be live reacting to a show that aired tonight, which we couldn't prioritize over Game of Thrones, obviously, which is the NXT versus NXT Alumni Worlds Collide show. So that'll be Thursday. All that said, though, guys, we do hope that you enjoyed our Game of Thrones discussion here, and we will be continuing to do these for the remainder of season 8. I can't even believe it's season 8. I keep on feeling like it's still season 7, but yeah, we're getting into season 8, and we hope you all enjoyed, and we will see you either tomorrow if you're here for the wrestling and the Game of Thrones, or next Sunday if you're just here for the Game of Thrones. But whatever it is, we hope that you remember to stay tuned.